My wife said, "It's just a video from my past." I replied, "The date says 10 days ago." Then I filed for divorce, packed her bags, and sent copies of the videos to the elders in her new fiance's village. And I just smiled, because she thinks she's getting a new husband, but she's about to be shamed and cast out by both families. Original post: I am 30 years old. Until a few months ago I was a newly married man. My marriage to my wife Priya was an arranged one, which is common in my part of India. We spoke on the phone and met a few times over a period of 6 months before the wedding. There wasn't a grand romance, but there was a quiet understanding. She seemed kind, we got along well, and both our families were happy. It felt like a solid, respectable foundation on which to build a life. Hey viewers, we are aiming for 1,000 subscribers. Your support brings us closer. Subscribe and be part of the journey. After a large traditional wedding in our hometown, we moved to the city where I work. My mother and her mother came with us for the first few weeks to help us settle in. Another common tradition. The first week was a blur of setting up our new apartment and navigating the early, awkward days of married life. Everything felt normal. I thought we were on the right path. The discovery that shattered my world came just 15 days after our wedding day. It was a Friday night. Priya was asleep, and I was on the couch, unable to sleep myself. I don't know what possessed me. I had never been a suspicious person. But I picked up her phone. I told myself I was just going to look at our wedding photos again. I opened her gallery, and there it was. It wasn't a photo. It was a video. The thumbnail showed her with a man I didn't recognize, in a setting that looked like an office. My heart started pounding in my chest. With a shaking hand I pressed play. The video was short, maybe a minute long. But it was enough to destroy everything. It was her, with a colleague from her office, engaged in a physical act. There was no sound, but I didn't need any. The images were burned into my mind. I looked at the date the video was recorded. It was from the previous Sunday, just 10 days after we had taken our vows. 10 days. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I couldn't breathe. My entire body went cold. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. This woman, my wife, the person I had just committed my life to, had done this. The trust, the hope, the future. It all evaporated in that single, silent minute. I sat there in the dark, the screen of her phone casting a sickening glow on my face, and I felt the entire structure of my new life collapse into dust around me. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I could not let this go. I had to confront her. Update 1. The next morning, I waited until our mothers had gone to the market. I sat Priya down in our new living room, the room that was supposed to be the heart of our home. My hands were shaking, but my voice was cold and steady. I placed her phone on the table between us. "I saw the video, Priya," I said. She looked at the phone, then at me, her face a mask of confusion. "What video?" "The video with your colleague. From last Sunday." A panic flared in her eyes, quickly replaced by a hard defensiveness. "That's an old video," she lied, her voice sharp. "He's my ex-boyfriend. That was from before we even met." "The video is dated," I said flatly. "It was taken 5 days ago." Her defensiveness turned to anger. "You have no right to go through my phone. This is my privacy." She tried to stand up, but I didn't move. She started to gaslight me, telling me I was overreacting, that many women have pasts, and it doesn't mean the marriage can't work. She was trying to twist her betrayal into my insecurity. I couldn't listen to it anymore. I stood up, grabbed my keys and my wallet, and walked out of the apartment. I went to a friend's place, my mind a chaotic storm of pain and rage. From the safety of his apartment, I made one phone call. I called her father. I told him exactly what I had found. I told him his daughter had been with another man just 10 days into our marriage, and that I had video proof. The effect was immediate. My phone started blowing up. It was Priya. Dozens of missed calls. A flood of messages. She was begging me to come back, begging for another chance. The lies were gone, replaced by frantic pleas. She finally admitted the truth. The man in the video was her colleague. It had happened during her lunch break at the office. I stayed away for a month. During that time, the pressure was relentless. It came from her, and it came from her parents. They begged me to reconsider, to think of the family's honor, to give her a chance to earn back my trust. She promised she would do anything, that she would dedicate her life to making it right. Against my better judgment, against the screaming voice in my head that told me to run, I relented. I was raised to believe that marriage is sacred, that you fight for it. I decided to go back and try to fix the unfixable. Update 2. Returning to the apartment was one of the hardest things I've ever done. The reconciliation we were attempting felt like a fragile, hollow sham from the start. The image from the video was a ghost that haunted every room, every conversation, every moment of silence. Before I agreed to come back, I had set one firm condition. She had to quit her job. I couldn't live with the knowledge that she was seeing that man every single day. She agreed immediately. It was a promise she made with tears in her eyes. It was a promise she never intended to keep. After I moved back in, the manipulation began. First, she said she had to serve her 2-month notice period. It was a reasonable request, so I agreed. But when the 2 months were up, there was another excuse. She was close to completing 2 full years with the company, and leaving now would look bad on her resume. She needed just a few more months. Every promise was a moving goalpost. The trust was completely gone. I slipped into a dark place. I became a version of myself I didn't recognize. I was paranoid, constantly checking her phone, questioning every text and call. I started following her, parking my car down the street from her office during her lunch break, just to make sure she wasn't meeting him. My life became a prison of suspicion and anxiety. I was having frequent panic attacks. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I was drowning. One night, my paranoia led me to her laptop. I went through her Google Drive, looking for anything. And I found it. More videos. This time, they were with her ex-boyfriend. They were dated from during our 6-month courtship period. While she was talking to me, getting to know me, promising her future to me, she was still sleeping with him. She was recording it. This wasn't a one-time mistake 10 days into our marriage. This was a pattern of deceit that had started before our life together had even officially begun. That was the final straw. The last shred of hope I had for our marriage died in that moment. I knew I could not live like this. The next day, I called her father. I told him calmly that I had tried, but the relationship was broken beyond repair. I told him, for the sake of my own sanity, we needed to separate peacefully. Instead of understanding, he exploded with rage. He insulted me. He called my family shameless. He accused me of lying about my income during the marriage negotiations and demanded to see my salary slip. The man who had begged me to take his daughter back was now trying to paint me as a villain. The family's true character was revealed. I packed my bags and left for good that day. The moment her father knew I was gone, he must have called her. With his full support, with her actions now validated by her family, she did one last thing to twist the knife. She immediately unfollowed me on Instagram and followed her colleague. The man from the video. It was a final, blatant act of disrespect that told me everything I needed to know. I had not lost a wife. I had escaped a viper's nest. Update 3. It has been 2 months since I left for the last time. We live in the same small town, only a couple of kilometers apart, but it feels like a different universe. We have not spoken. The silence is a relief, but the thoughts still churn in my mind. The depression is a heavy cloak. The panic attacks still come, sudden and overwhelming waves of anxiety that leave me breathless. I question my decision constantly. Did I give up too soon? Should I have fought harder? The answer to those questions came last week, and it came with a cold, brutal clarity that cut through my grief. I learned from a relative that Priya's family was already arranging another marriage for her. In our community, news travels fast. They weren't waiting for a divorce. They were already shopping for a new groom, trying to erase me, to paste over the shame of a failed marriage with the celebration of a new one. I found out that a proposal was almost finalized. She had already met the man. They were in the talking phase. The same phase she and I had been in just a year ago. The thought of her and her family deceiving another unsuspecting man, another family, filled me with a righteous anger I hadn't felt before. They were going to walk away from the wreckage they had created, leaving me to deal with the trauma and depression. And they were going to do it with their heads held high, pretending to be the wronged party. I realized then that I could not let that happen. This wasn't about revenge in the sense of causing her pain. This was about justice. It was about the truth. She and her family had shown their character, and the family of this new man deserved to know who they were welcoming into their lives. They deserved to know about the colleague. They deserved to know about the ex-boyfriend. They deserved to know about the videos. A plan began to form in my mind. It was simple, and in a small town like ours, it would be devastatingly effective. I would not shout from the rooftops. I would not engage in a public war of words. I would use the very traditions and community structures they were hiding behind to expose them. I started by gathering my evidence. I made copies of the videos. I created a clear, concise timeline of events, from our courtship to the day I left, including her father's hostile accusations. I did some quiet research. It wasn't hard to find out the name of the new groom and his family. They were a well-respected family from a neighboring village. I found out who the elders of their family were, the people whose opinions held weight. My path was clear. I would not let her and her family victimize anyone else. I was going to arm the truth and let it do its work. Final update. The final act of my marriage was not a loud, angry confrontation, but a series of quiet, deliberate steps. I knew that in our community, reputation is everything. A public scandal would bring shame to my own family as well. The revenge had to be precise, like surgery. I contacted my uncle, my father's older brother. He is a man of immense integrity and is widely respected in our town. I sat with him and told him everything from the very beginning. I showed him the timeline I had created. And then, I showed him the videos. I watched his face turn from sympathy to a hard, grim anger. He understood immediately what needed to be done. My uncle made a single phone call to a respected elder in the new groom's village. He requested a private meeting between the elders of our two families. No reasons were given over the phone, but the seriousness of the request was understood. The meeting took place a few days later. I was not there. It was a matter for the elders. My uncle went, along with two other respected members of our community. They met with the father and uncles of the new groom. My uncle calmly and respectfully laid out the truth. He presented the timeline. He spoke of my wife's infidelity just 10 days into our marriage. He spoke of the deception during our courtship. He spoke of her family's aggressive and dishonorable behavior when I tried to end the marriage peacefully. And then, he played the videos. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic for Priya and her family. The engagement was called off that very day. The new groom's family was horrified, not just by Priya's actions, but by her family's deliberate attempt to deceive them, to pass off their daughter without disclosing her past. The dishonor was immense. In a small town, a secret that powerful cannot be contained. The story spread, not as wild gossip, but as a somber truth passed between families. Priya's family was disgraced. They were not shamed for their daughter's mistakes, but for their arrogance, their lies, and their attempt to knowingly ruin another family's honor. They were ostracized. I heard that the colleague from the video was fired from his job. His own family was shamed by his actions. Priya is still at home. There will be no new groom for her, not in our town, not for a very long time. She is now living with the consequences of her choices, stripped of the respectable facade her family had tried to build around her. I have filed for divorce. The process should be simple now. As for me, the panic attacks have started to subside. A great weight has been lifted. The truth is out, and the burden is no longer mine to carry alone. I feel a quiet sense of justice. It is not a happy feeling, but it is a peaceful one. The road to healing is long, but for the first time in months, I can see the path forward. I have taken my life back, not with anger, but with the undeniable power of the truth.